Belichick's lost a step to me. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this.
This is Anik Squared.
Oh, what's up? Welcome back. Episode 4, Week 4 of the NFL. This is Anik Squared. John Anik, voice of the UFC. My name is Jason Anik. Don't really have a title yet, other than the co-host of Anik Squared. Does that work? That does work. I love not having to drive the bus. It is so rare, having spent 20 years in that number one chair, so to speak, to be able to sit here. Not that I'm positioning myself as some superbly sharp NFL analyst, but to have you do all the intros, I just sit back and I could be drinking right now. I'm not. Well, I was thinking earlier today, when I read some of these spots, that is when I hear your voice in my head the most. You know what I'm saying? The whole twin thing is like, that's when I hear you in my head, whether it's Modelo, Toyo tires, I'll shout out Toyo tires. But I just hear spots, you reading spots in my head. That's been part of the soundtrack of my life. Anyway, we talk NFL on this show. Typically, every week we make 5 picks against the spread and against each other, going head to head. Our ultimate goal being to set ourselves up for the Westgate Super Contest, where we pick 5 games against the spread. A little more success, unfortunately, on Anik Squared than in the contest thus far. But that just kind of is what it is, man. Chomping through the first 3 weeks, not easy. I think next year, and by the way, it's $1,000 to enter the Westgate Super Contest. You can also enter the Circus Sports Contest as well. Great paydays on either side if you can figure out how to cash. As yet, I have not figured out that particular initiative. But next year, we're both going to have our own entries. And that's going to solve all of this noise, right? Because I do think part of the issue is, and this reared its head last year a little bit, we realized more success here than we did actually in the contest. And I do think when you have 2 heads, sometimes it can be better than one. I used to participate in the Super Contest back in the day. There were like 6 of us, UFC full-time employees, trying to pare it down to 5 games every week. It can be a nightmare. I want to go head-to-head against you, not just here on Anik Square, presented by DraftKings, but also in the actual Westgate Super Contest. I like it. So that's the solution. But yes, 6 and 9 out of the chute. Back to back 2 and 3 weeks. We're doing better here, obviously over 500, but the Super Contest has been just complete fucking struggle town so far in 2020. Yeah, we'll get into that. So let's take a quick look back at our Week 3 performance. Well, we're, as usual, hot, cold. Let's get right to our first segment, Tire and Ice, presented by Toyo Tires. Guys, the road ahead for this football season is uncertain, and there's definitely no map available for players, fans, or coaches. But in order to arrive at the big games, you need to get there safely. So the next time you're in the market for tires, there is no better option route than a quick slant to Toyo Tires. Whether it's a set of open country tires for the mountains of Denver or 4 new Celsius sports for a city like Los Angeles, you can ride with confidence and no regrets with their 500-mile or 45-day trial. Open roads await this fall. Hit up toyotires.com to find a dealer near you. Toyo Tires, open roads await. My Toyo tires are so fresh. Now, my wife drives the nicer car that has the Toyo tires. I drive a minivan, and my man Stan Shem, we're going to get some Toyo tires eventually, I think, on the minivan. That's like the dream for me. I'm going to drive a Honda Odyssey until I die, but the Toyos just take it up another level. Maybe we'll get that Howlerhead sponsorship, then get you one of those minivans. Dana White got that fresh Howlerhead custom minivan back in the day. All right, so we're going to get to the Super Contest. So 6 and 9 overall through 15 games. And so I believe it was 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, which that's a quick way to get 3 games under 500. Now you need a solid week, 4 and 1, just to get back to 500. Let's quickly talk about the losses first, as we do. Jets plus 2.5 versus the Patriots. Zach Wilson just shouldn't be in the 5. There is so much Zach Wilson noise this week, and rightfully so. The criticism coming from a number of different sources, Joe Namath chief among them. But I think even your most peripheral NFL fan, if you've ingested enough of Zach Wilson over the last 2 or 3 years, they can't start him this weekend, and yet that appears to be the plan as we sit here on Wednesday. They have signed Trevor Siemian, but shame on us for being on the Jets. The Patriots outfit is not very good either, right? I mean, they skirted out there, avoiding that Hail Mary to actually get the win. I know they're the better team, and shame on me for being so convicted in my belief that the Jets were going to end that 14-game Patriots winning streak, but yeah, you can't bet on Zach Wilson right now. And certainly when they play the Chiefs on Sunday night, I will be nowhere near the New York Jets. You know, and ultimately in this contest, like the next loss I'm going to talk about, I promise you, come game time, I didn't like that side at all. And that's just an inevitability. we can submit these picks Friday or Saturday really at the latest. And sometimes it's a little bit of a dance. For example, last week, we were hugely bullish on Seattle Seahawks early in the week. And then all this rumblings, the line moves because Andy Dalton apparently just everybody respects him to such a great degree where that line moves. And then we didn't play Seattle. But the Raiders -2.5 versus the Steelers. Really, I don't know how that gets in the 5. We both like the Raiders until Sunday. Then I love the Steelers. I did.
Our worst selection of the year.
Right. Josh McDaniels. I mean, you heard Devontae Adams' comments, not a winning culture.
Yeah, that's a direct shot at the head coach and perhaps some of the executives above him. I'm not even wired right now. Like, I have no headphone. I got an earbud. Like, I am so frustrated with that Raiders selection. I could just get up and walk off the set right now. There's nothing holding me down. There's no microphone.
All right. So let's move on. And so this was another one that, so we played, and I almost have to talk about a win and a loss here. So we played the Cowboys -12.5. They lose outright to Arizona. We also played the Chiefs -13 versus the Bears. I guess we maybe felt like both of those games were going to go that way. Certainly the Bears, I'm in full fade mode on the Bears right now. And the Chiefs didn't do a lot offensively, but beat Jacksonville week 2. You knew they were going to explode offensively. So that felt good. But the Cowboys, I mean, credit the Cardinals head coach, Jonathan Gannon. I have to tell you, so the beginning of the season, right? It's his first as the head coach. A lot of people pick this team not to win a game. So there was a meeting, and he got a lot of shit for this, but meeting with all the players, right? And so at the end of his speech, or at one point, he says, and I quote, "Be who you are. Just understand I'm looking for fucking killers." I knew you would like that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, they get a win against the Cowboys. Cowboys got the Patriots coming in town this week, but that was certainly square. And then our final hit of the 2, Dolphins -6.5 versus the Broncos. That was my favorite play of the week. You would have been on that on Anik Squared had I not been. Unbelievable, man, what the Dolphins are doing down here, huh?
70 points. Could have had 73. I just want to bring up an episode of Succession when you talk about killers, because there is a point, I believe, season 2 of that show. And don't worry, there won't be any spoilers here. But at one point, Logan Roy says to his son, Kendall Roy,
I don't even know
all of these things. I know, but most people fucking do. You're all of these things, but you're not a killer. And it remains to be seen as to whether or not his son goes on to, in fact, be a killer. But yes, there are people who aren't killers, right? Zach Wilson, I don't know. Collegiately, was he some fucking killer? Because he doesn't seem to want the job right now, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and
are you eating film?
Well, and, talk about mixed martial artists, right? And getting to that primal space. And Kenny Florian, your podcast host, talks ad nauseum about just, going in there to finish.
You would think that Wilson would be so desperate right now, and I didn't intend to go back to him. Right? I intended to go to the Dolphins, but I wanted to get that sort of killer reference in there. But you would think at this point, people in his family would be like, dude, just fucking eat film, just be totally desperate, totally immersed. He looks like his head is completely in the clouds, man. Like, I don't know if I feel bad for the kid or what.
Dude, I just think the mental game is probably more important at that position, and I'm not sure if he's ever going to have it there.
Yeah.
I have to say about this contest, though, it's like Philadelphia -5 or -5.5 versus Tampa Bay. As Sunday approached, and it's like, I'm like, how is that game not in the 5? That's what happens every week. It's like, how is this game not in the 5? So I got Zach Wilson instead of Jalen Hurts, but
historically, though, and I don't know if this speaks to the people who cash in this contest, we have done better as the year goes along. The first month is very difficult. Even a team like Arizona, I'm going to be in a great rush to continuously fade them, but they have proven to be competitive, right? This weekend, they go at San Francisco. Divisional game, you can argue it's the hardest game on their schedule. They're catching 14. I'm going to be looking to fade that outfit again, although I do have respect for the leader of the killers, Jonathan Gannon. But yeah, But let me get to Miami, right? Because they put up 70 points, and this head coach is really something. And the quarterback, if he can stay healthy, obviously Tua has been a revelation. I think he's one of the favorites right now, co-favorites, if I'm not mistaken, to win NFL MVP. But their big test, obviously, early season test comes this weekend against Buffalo. And there are a lot of people sharp and square on both sides of that game. Perhaps it'll be featured in our 5 later in the meat of the program. But I don't know, man. It's crazy how much I've softened as a sports fan, because we live down here in South Florida, and part of me actually feels good for these people.
I do as well. I have in my notes that my Dolphins, I'm actually referring to them at one point. That's later in the program, though. But, a lot of people do talk about the Patriots being slow on film. And this Dolphins team, it's not just Tyreek Hill. Duvon Achane, that's how he wants us to pronounce it. Did I get it? Achane? Raheem Mostert. They didn't even have Jalen Waddle last week, but the running plays, Tua is brilliantly executing these plays, and a lot of it, these little idiosyncrasies, but the way McDaniel has these runs designed, everything goes one way and it leads the other way, but it's different, it's new, it's innovative. I haven't seen a lot of this stuff before. So anyway, 2-3 in the super contest, head to head, same bat channel. We both go 3-2. Now we're both 8-7 on the year. I'd certainly rather be 8-7 in the contest, right? Because then you pop a 5-0, then you start to be in business. But so we both go 3-2 in the contest overall. I'm going to go through your 5 real quick. Your 2 losses, Jets +3 versus the Patriots. So you did get a little bit of a better number. Doesn't fucking matter. Rams +2.5 at the Bengals. I believe that closed at 3.5. So you would have got that one home. Those were your 2 losses. Seahawks -6 versus the Panthers. That line moved a lot in the Panthers' direction. I wish we had stayed on the Seahawks. I wish we had taken the Seahawks from your picks into the contest. You were on the Colts +7.5 at the Ravens. I was on the Ravens -7.5. Didn't feel good there. And then the Bills -6.5 at the Commanders. Clean, 37-7 or whatever the final is. And that's, I guess, my frustration is I see you being bullish on the Bills again and maybe wishing. I don't think we brought them into the contest a single time.
So this is a recreational exercise. It's intended to be fun, and it is a ton of fun going through this whole process. But there is a lot of second guessing that happens. And if you do submit your picks early in the week and you do like the Thursday night game, as you did with the San Francisco 49ers, then maybe you're not thinking about all these sharps talking about the weather in Washington, D.C., and maybe that takes you off of the Bills. And maybe you're not thinking about that Andy Dalton, Adam Thielen connection. And again, that was my number 1 play last week, was the Seahawks against the Panthers. But once Bryce Young didn't play, I just didn't like the game as much. And ultimately, when push came to shove, somehow the Raiders ended up in the 5. But you live, you learn, and you move on. But I do think that there's a lot of overthinking that goes into it. And maybe if you just stick to your instincts, or at least we stick to our early instincts in week 4, we'll get out of the 6 and 9 hole.
And some of the comments I make week to week, some of the comments I made on last week's show about the Saints, I can't even believe that I uttered those words.
What'd you say?
Well, you just hating on the offense a little bit. I mean, the defense is absolutely unbelievable. And the offense, I think, will get it. I just don't like the quarterback, and I should have kept it as simple as that, but I do hope he gets well, Derek Carr. So I was 3-2 as well. I lost on the Packers again, right? So I had the Packers -2. I believe this line closed at +1.5. So they win by a point, yet I lose again. So that's back-to-back weeks that I've lost on the Packers by a single point. But as of Sunday morning, would have hit. Come back from down 17 and win the ball game. But that was nice. And then I had the Ravens -7.5. But honestly, I kind of hated this right after you played the Colts on Anik Squared last week. And frankly, with Gardner Minshew playing, as much as I like Anthony Richardson, the growing pains manifest themselves. Anyway, the Ravens killed me in a parlay on the money line. They had a lot of some calls missed there. I digress. Best bet of the week, Dolphins -6.5 versus the Broncos. Certainly covered that.
We were both aligned on the Dolphins. That was the easiest game for us to put in the 5. And I just think it's going to be so interesting to handicap that team and that offense going forward. Where does the truth lie? Go on.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking I digress a little bit because I have to shout you out as you absolutely wiped the bookie fucking clean this weekend with just some typical plays that you don't make, some very heavy teasers. Well done. Just all across the board. Stayed away from some danger zones like the Jaguars.
And we stayed away from the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, absolutely murdering it locally here down here in South Florida. And I would give away all of that to be 7-8 in the contest. Right?
For one win.
One game better, right? Like I'm trying to prove myself in this fucking contest against a lot of people who I consider to be the sharpest football minds in the world, even if they have 7 fucking entries, and just can't cash, man.
So you alluded to the fact that I played the Thursday night game on Anik Squared, 49ers -10 versus the Giants. I'm glad I got in. The 49ers just too good. You talk about the game this week. That 14 points scares me, but maybe it shouldn't. My final hit, Lions -3.5 versus the Falcons. It closed at 3. Didn't overthink this. I wish I had been more bullish Sunday morning and played it a little bit. The run defense stout again, holding the Atlanta to 44 rushing yards with Bijan Robinson. That's no small task. So well played there with the Lions. It's been a fascinating year for the Lions in a lot of ways for me because you win that game against Kansas City and then you have the setback, but a huge opportunity for them coming up tomorrow night in a ball game. So that's a 5, 3-2. Both of us go 3-2. Anything else you're chomping on week 3? before we move it forward.
Well, no, we were split on that Falcons-Lions game, and I'm just really curious to see what Atlanta does in London this weekend, because I don't know if Arthur Smith was busy packing for London and forgot about the game they had in Detroit prior, but just not innovative and not a good effort, really. I just didn't like the lack of aggression from them. So I know Desmond Ridder obviously is not the answer at quarterback, but there are a few outfits right now in the NFL, Falcons and the Jets, where you feel pretty convicted in saying that their offense is not going to be able to. I mean, Bijan Robinson, I guess, would be some sort of variable in all of that, but the offense is not going to carry the day. Like the Jets-Chiefs handicap is so interesting this weekend. How do you not? I mean, 9.5's gone, 10 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. I mean, how do you not? I do think there's a Swift letdown after the Taylor Swift game. But how do you not look hard at the Chiefs right now, knowing that they're going to stick by Zach Wilson seemingly for another week? It's insane.
For me, though, it's just more about not looking anywhere near the Jets. It's one thing if you want to slide Kansas City somewhere in there, but looking nowhere playing the Jets. All right, we got another celebrity guest this week. Let's get to our guest, week 4, Anik Squared. Ladies and gentlemen, another big-time celebrity this week. He is an athlete. He is an actor. He is a man. He is 40. Dude, podcasts all over the map. Fighter and the Kid, Below the Belt, Food Truck Diaries, stand-up comedy all over the country. What a fucking pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Big Brown, Brendan Schaub joins Anik Squared. What is up, brother? Welcome.
What's up, brother? You're a little too loose with the term celebrity, but I'll take it, man. There's some legit celebrities. I am not one of them.
Well, you're sneaky Renaissance man. I always refer to Joe Rogan and Kenny Florian as much more the Renaissance man than I, but you do have a lot of layers, right? You're a fucking mountain biker. He left that out. So, no, but it's good to see you, man. And it's good to see you in a non-mixed martial arts setting. Like we talked to DC last week and I said, it's not like a UFC free zone per se, but it's nice to talk football, especially with a guy who played it at such a high level as yourself. So.
Yeah, that's why when Jason hit me up, I jump at the opportunity to not talk about fighting. No, don't get me wrong. There's nothing I love more than the UFC, man. I bleed and die the UFC. But if I get a chance to elaborate on other things, like I was just in Spokane doing press and I was at a morning show, and it's, you're there to talk about comedy and the stand-up dates. And, they're all from punching people in the face to punchlines on stage. And I'm like, I've heard that a million times doing 10 years of stand-up. And then just the whole conversation is like, so is John Jones really coming back? I'm like, what? Yeah, he's back. What are we talking about? And I'm on national news. Like, what are you talking about, man? So I'm excited to talk some football, man.
So we're going to get right into it. So for those of you who don't know, this man played collegiately, CU, and so started at Whittier, California, right? Playing lacrosse, playing football. Then you go to CU. You end up earning a scholarship your senior year, played some fullback there. So for you, ultimately, was were you more of a stud playing lacrosse? Because that sport's growing huge now. Was lacrosse bigger for you growing up than football?
No, football was definitely the dream. My dad signed me up for tackle football when I was 6. I have a 7-year-old now. I can't imagine signing him up for tackle football.
Right?
Oh. But so I played tackle football. The goal was always the NFL and to play at CU. And then I started playing lacrosse my freshman year of high school. I made the varsity team my freshman year. But I think especially back then, especially in Colorado, like on the East Coast, lacrosse is huge. Mm-hmm. In Colorado, it's just kind of getting started. So there wasn't a ton of athletes. It's like the first black guy to start playing hockey. He's going to dominate. So for me, I was just kind of like this outlier athlete, and I excelled really fast. And then I was all state by my senior year, playing some all-star games. And then I thought it wasn't my first football was always the goal. And then I got hurt my senior year in high school football, missed the entire season. And then I had offers to walk on to like Texas A&M, Cal, and then CU was kind of flirting with the idea. And then someone was like, we'll go to a JUCO. And I just always had this weird connotation with JUCOs. I'm like, I don't need to go to JUCO. I'm a smart kid, man. But for athletics, it made more sense. But Whittier was a really good academic school, and they were the number 1 team, especially on the West Coast, but number 1 overall in the nation for lacrosse. And at the time, it was D3, but D3 lacrosse is really, really high level. So they offered me an academic scholarship, which is hilarious. I had like a 2.7 but they offered me an academic scholarship if I played lacrosse and football. So I went there, played a year. That lacrosse team, that Whittier lacrosse team is the best, hands down team I've ever been on across the board. Even in my fight teams, I've been with some insane fight teams at Grudge, Jackson's. I've been all over Black House, in NFL, with the Buffalo Bills, that team. Also, in Arena League, and then at CU, great teams. There's never been a more talented, better team than at Whittier College. That lacrosse team was the best thing I've ever been part of. It was also the hardest I've ever had to work. So as soon as I played well, I was freshman of the year in Division III that year at receiver, and that's when CU started sniffing around. You can get an opportunity if you walk on, and if you give me an inch, I'll take a mile. So as soon as I saw some opportunity, transferred over, walked on the team, and eventually got a scholarship.
I do want to talk about football, but I have these visions of you. I don't know what your measurables were back then, but just destroying people with a fucking lacrosse stick, one of those big defensive sticks. I mean, my God, bro.
Bro, and these kids were not ready for that. It was like, dude, I'm telling you, it's like Bobby Boucher up in there. Like my stick skills weren't the best, but my God, I was giving CP around like it was my job, which it was. And I would just light dudes up because they were used to guys like hitting the stick, but they're just running, like catching the ball. So decleating dudes. And they're like, this is insane, man. I got so many flags, and it was fun. It was so much fun.
So you talked about an injury, and I don't know if you were referencing the lacerated liver. I believe that's what Travis Hunter at Colorado is dealing with right now, if I'm not mistaken. He's trying to bully Deion Sanders into playing this weekend. But was that the injury you had back in the day?
Yep, man, you guys did your homework. Yeah, lacerated liver. First play of my senior year, they were going to throw a deep ball to me, and I was like the big recruit. This DB was the big recruit, and we were playing at Florida at the Disney World Resort. Huh. And this kid got a scholarship to Florida State, and I was like, I'm going to toast this dude opening play. And this freak just comes out of the air, one hand interception, first play of the game. I'm running him down. I was like, I'm going to strip the ball and get a fumble. And I go to strip him, and he jukes the biggest guy on our team, Gary Moore, who I ended up playing football with at CU. He's like 6'8", 350 pounds. So he jukes him out while I'm going to strip the ball, and his helmet runs into my ribs. First play of the game. Shatters my ribs, and those ran into my liver. So I don't know how bad Travis Hunter's injury is. When they say he's going to be back in 2 weeks, I was out, you're talking months. His must not be that bad. His might be a bruise, but mine was actually cut. I couldn't travel. I was stuck in Florida for probably 3 weeks at the hospital. I couldn't do anything. So I don't see how he can play football.
So you must be enjoying that, I would think, little run. Even with the big loss last week at Oregon. I mean, it's got to be so fun to watch your team with Deion at the helm.
We've already won. And I told people this before the season. I had anxiety because there's so much expectations on them. We won one game last year. It was awful to watch. The only team we beat was Cal. They're awful. So for us, if I would have told you at the beginning of the season last year, I went, hey, next year, we're going to start 3-0. We're going to beat TCU, who's ranked in the top 20. You go, you're out of your mind. If they do that, that'd be insane. Well, now everyone's moved the field goal posts. Like, well, they're top 5. BCS is like, whoa, I never said that. Top 5. You're out of your goddamn mind. We don't have offensive line, defensive line. But what Deion's done is absolutely nutsos. But again, people, because Deion's so loud and brash, and he didn't come up the same way as these other coaches, and he recruits a little different, and he's making all this noise. When you do that, it's very similar to Conor McGregor. He comes in, he's loud. We're all good if you're winning. As soon as there's a hiccup, the onslaught comes, and they're coming, and they're trying to tear you down. But Deion's built for this, man. There's nobody like him. He's built for it.
He is one of one. A lot of people consider him the greatest greatest football player of all time. The response from the Black community has just been off the charts. And yeah, I would think for you as an alumni, this would just be absolutely just a gift from the gods, right? Because obviously there were times with Cordell Stewart and other times in your life where this was a really good school. But dude, I mean, this is going to be a really fun half a decade, I would think.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. They need to back up the Brinks truck because they need to lock Deion into a 10-year deal because it's only a matter of time for an SEC team comes or something like that. But the amount of money he's bringing to the program, like they said in the first 3 games, he's made $90 million for the school in 3 games.
It's insane.
It's insane. So they're going to have to back up that Brinks truck. And I think he's going to stay there. I don't think he doesn't want to jump to the NFL. I don't think his particular skill set's going to be good in the NFL. But for college, he was made for this. But and these kids are buying into it. The big recruits that he's in, they're buying into it. But back to the CU stuff, like when I was there, we were good. Always top 20.
Right.
I played in 3 Big 12 North championship games, played Oklahoma, Texas, always went to a bowl game. So I'm used to that. And it's been rough lately. So for Deion to come along, it's just people just have to give them time, man. Give him time. Like next year, they're going to be better. Are they going to be top 5? No. Now in 3-4 years, that's like, to me, you look at the FSU coach, Florida State, they were awful. They're like CU.
Yeah,
they're a power. They bring this new guy in. First year, he wins 2 more games. Everyone's like, okay, improvement. But they're not, he's not on ESPN nonstop and he's not, ranting and getting all these big recruits. The next year he wins 4 more games. We're like, all right, we got something here. Next year he wins 5 more games. They're like, okay, he's in the right direction. This year, them boys are bad.
Oh, man.
FSU's a real deal, dude. FSU's damn good. That's how this goes. You got to give guys time. So with Deion, people just got to be patient, man.
So does Sean Payton, as we transition to the NFL, need the same patience? I mean, certainly a disaster last weekend. You talk about the Brinks truck, man, certainly getting taken care of from those Walmart owners. I don't know. You were going to ask him about Russell Wilson versus Sean Payton, but I don't really know what to make of Russell Wilson or Sean Payton at this stage. But I mean, how do you feel about your NFL team?
Yeah, my issue with it's like you could have Vince Lombardi coaching that team. If you don't have good players on the field, you're not going to win. So everyone made this big splash that Sean Payton's coming in. It's like, but it's the exact same team from last year. So we didn't add anybody. Our defense is good. Patrick Surtain, probably the best cornerback in the league. Right. But we didn't add anything, dude. And like, well, no, it's just a Russell Wilson problem. It's like, no, there's no weapons. I don't get it. So, dude, you lose 70-20, somebody gets to get fired. Like it's not like college. Like Sean Payton's a proven coach. Dude. Like he's had it in the NFL. Now heads need to roll. That's why NFL is different than college.
Dude, some of the tackling was really looked like guys were taking dives, man, at certain points. It was just pathetic.
It was strange.
So with your life, right? It's like you're doing comedy, all that. You're everywhere. You got children. Like, what are your Sundays like? Are you able to, or Saturdays or Sundays? How much football you actually get to watch?
If I'm on the road Saturdays, I will watch every college football game I can till I go on stage at 7:00. Like I'll watch all of it. If I'm home, my wife and the kids like football too. My wife would know, like, if CU's playing and it's on main TV, like I can get those 2 hours to watch the game. Outside that, it's a little dicey, man. It's like, but also I don't enjoy the NFL game as much as I do college. I'm all in on college. I like that there's like obviously 70-20 with the Broncos is unheard of. That's a whole nother issue. But the NFL, they're so damn good. They're so freaking good. There's just not the same, like the momentum can't really affect those guys. In college, I like they can be up 30-0 and lose the game 40-30. I like the amateur of it. I dig that, man. I love college. I'm obsessed with college.
That's very interesting. Brendan Schaub with us here on Anik Squared. So I want to ask you about Colorado this weekend. USC seems like a fucking wagon. Caleb Williams is pretty good. 21.5. Buffalo's catching 21.5. I'm inclined to bet on Coach Prime. I don't think Travis Hunter's going to play, right? Despite his wishes. How much are you betting on this stuff, and what do you make of that game and that spread this weekend?
Yeah, I definitely bet. I bet on the Buffs. I always tell people, don't listen to my picks. Don't listen to my picks or Drake's, right? We're both we're too bad at it. But when it comes to the Buffs, I think they're going to have a better showing than they did against Oregon. I think they know the pressure's on them. I think that Deion's going to, crack the whip on them. I think you're going to have do they beat them? Probably not. What's interesting is last year they asked me to come talk to the team, like do a speech before the USC game. And remember, they won one game. And I was like, who are they playing? Like SC. And I was like, I'll talk when you guys play like a CSU or Weber State. You got anything else coming up? So I passed on that. I don't need another L on my resume when they play SC. So, and I'm down. Yeah. So I passed on that. And then this year, we're trying to figure out a time for me to talk to the team. I'll talk to them this year. But last year, they were too soft, way too soft.
Well, and I would think a lot of their players would love to get a chance to connect with you, and just given everything that you're doing and everything that you have done, even though you haven't fought in obviously a long time, you're very much connected to the mixed martial arts and the UFC world. And I think a lot of those guys, if the numbers that I'm leaning into are worth a damn, there's a lot of young football players that are pretty ravenous about their MMA support. So that would be cool for you to get reconnected with that.
CU so big now. They had like The Rock there last weekend. You know, they had the Rock. They had Lil Wayne there. So I think I'm self-conscious now. I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, but you're funnier than both. You're funnier than both those dudes, though. So
facts. But the other problem is Shakur Sanders and those guys are making more money than I am. So it's tough. If they were amateurs, it's much easier to talk to these fellers. Now that he's pulling up Maybach, it's like, why am I listening to this dude? So we'll see, man.
So before we get you out of here, I just want to ask you, I know you said it's not a UFC free zone, John. So I was going to ask John, but it's like Chandler Jones, right? Brother of UFC fighter John Jones, like I guess hospitalized against his own will, being locked out of the team facility. I'm seeing these journal entries. Like I was going to ask you, but I'll ask Brendan, like, what the fuck, man, with these Jones boys? Like Arthur Jones seems all right.
Arthur seems all right. He's the biggest one out of all of them. He used to train with us in Jackson's, and he was a house. I just think they're wild boys, man. Like, that's the thing. I think they're wild boys. There might be a splash of mental health issues there. And both of them are so just great at what they do. And to be that great, you got to be a different type of person, man.
Yeah.
You know, and I think now with social media, if this is in the 90s, we don't hear about any of this. So social media can switch things up. So it's not everybody should be on social media, including Chandler Jones. So I just think they're so damn good. They're outliers. They're just different. And when things are going bad, they're the same way. They're very vocal, and when things are going good, you get both ends of it. So it's dicey, man. I ran into John. We have the same sponsor, and they brought us in to speak to the staff. And I haven't seen John in years, dude. Anik, I'm telling you, bro, this dude is in shape. I was like, what the whoa, bro. And he goes, yeah, man, I'm getting in shape against Stipe. He goes, he's going the other direction. He's getting bigger. I'm getting leaner, tighter. I was like, this kid's going to be a problem.
That is great to hear. I think that's the recipe for success too. Stipe seemingly has just been working his ass off. So it's nice to hear that John Jones is following suit. We got to let you go, my man, but we appreciate the time and all the insight. We wish your Buffaloes all the best this weekend. Brendan Schaub, don't be a stranger. Check out all of his content on YouTube, on Instagram as well, at Brendan Schaub. You got anything else for Big Round?
No, just pleasure to meet you. Such an honor, brother. I appreciate you.
You too, brother. Next time in person. You know I love both of you, man. So whenever you need me, I'll reach out. I'm here, brother.
You're the man. Thanks, B. Schaub.
Appreciate it, guys. See you, fellas. Go Buffs.
That a boy. The talented Brendan Schaub. Week 4, Anik Squared rolls on. Oh, dude, that man. You can imagine him at fullback blocking for you.
Imagine him with a lacrosse stick. My God, 240 pounds of 6'3" muscle with a lacrosse stick that's like
6'4".
Sorry, come on.
All right, so the NFL season is cranking along, and Sundays in my house are just as you would expect. I'm locked in, right in front of the TV, tapped into all things pro football, action all over the board. We at Anik Squared are happy to announce that we have partnered with our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the National Football League, to bring all new customers an exciting way to join in on the action right now. New customers download the DraftKings app, use our promo code SQUARED, that's SQUARED, bet just $5 and boom, $200 in bonus bets hits your account instantly. So don't wait any longer, get some skin in the game and download the DraftKings app now. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets together from the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up using promo code SQUARED, bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, let's get to the head-to-head picks. I always say the meat and potatoes. It's because it's probably my favorite thing I do all week, except hanging out with my little girls, right?
So the only part of this segment that is challenging and not super fun is the fact that we can't really talk about the NFL Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, up until the time that we tape Anik Squared, because we don't want to know on which side the other falls.
Talk about it with one another.
With one another, exactly. So that's the only sort of issue, is that I might really like a game early on in the week, and I sort of have to keep that to myself. One thing I just want to say before we get into my selections.
You looking at my fucking sheet?
No, I'm not looking at. You think I need your picks?
Well, we go in order of importance, right? So my first anyway, go ahead.
Thematically, fading coaches. I will not be on the Minnesota Vikings, nor the Las Vegas Raiders, nor the Los Angeles Chargers until further notice. Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell, is that his name? Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah, that's his name. Patriots draft
completely mangled the end of the game against the Chargers. Brandon Staley on the other side didn't do his team any favors. I like the aggressiveness overall, but I'm not going to be backing him as a coach and thereby his outfit until further notice.
Thanks. So you all heard John Anik's faded coaches, right? So just make sure you lock that in. One rule, and I know he alluded to this, but just to remind you, as we go through our 5, we cannot have any duplicate selection. So, for example, if I select the Patriots with my first selection, John can't select that. So we need to sort of put our best picks to the front of the line.
And we are giving you 10 free plays every week here on the DraftKings YouTube channel. And over the last 2 weeks, those selections are 6 and 4.
Correct. All right. So for the first time in a long time, certainly for the first time all season, I like a lot of games on the board. I picked first last week. Get us started. What's your first selection? Week 4.
First selection for me will be the Packers plus 1.5 Thursday nighter home to the Detroit Lions. Detroit has won 3 straight in the series. This is really just a bet on Green Bay getting healthy and getting points in primetime at Lambeau Field. Christian Watson is vowed to play, even if he had not been medically cleared as of Tuesday. Aaron Jones limited to practice Tuesday. He did participate, though. That's a good sign. Now, after this game, schedule-wise, the Packers get a nice break until a Monday nighter at Las Vegas. That's in week 5 before they go on the bye in week 6. So a real good shot for the Pack to go into the bye at 4-1. Could have easily been 5-0 if they had handled business against the Atlanta Falcons. I think they beat the Lions at home. Packers plus 1.5 to lead my card for week 4.
I like it. So what's interesting is we just came up with something on it. So my 4th selection right now, which I'm going to reveal now, I'm going to do 2 in a row, but I'm going to reveal it now because I'm going against you head to head on the Thursday night. So that's a little tweak we have, right? I could have held back on that, but I need to talk about it now because you just brought it up. You talk about that. So I'm on the Lions. I am drinking the Dan Campbell blue fucking Kool-Aid all day. So this is my 2nd consecutive week playing the Thursday night game, and I'm not going to just ignore that game. I can't ignore it. But, both teams are banged up, but I think Detroit's getting healthier. You talk about Christian Watson, Aaron Jones. They're not necessarily going to play. David Bakhtiari not necessarily playing either. The game's tomorrow. Green Bay squeaks out an 18-17 win last week, down 17-0 early. But for me, you're still getting shut out 3 quarters. Detroit has the 5th best run defense in the league. If Aaron Jones doesn't play, they're going to be one-dimensional with still a young quarterback. To me, if the Lions are going to take the next step and they're going to go to the postseason or win this division, they got to handle business here as a slight road favorite against, to me, a team that is inferior. The Lions host the Panthers next week, a little extra rest. You have to think that's an extremely winnable game at home. Dan Campbell's boys need to get this done on Thursday night. Thrilled to go against you. I was going to try and convince you to put this in the contest, so that'd be an interesting conversation. So my quote-unquote first selection is the Lions minus 1.5 at the Packers.
I don't mind playing the Thursday night game. I just know, at least here on Anik Squared, in 2023, head-to-head, 2-0 against the Boca Bun. So
the Boca fucking Bun.
The Boca Bun. That's the Boca
All right,
Bun.
I'm going to let you roll ahead.
He just got 8 inches cut. Still plenty of lettuce upstairs.
Still another fucking 8, 10. All right.
You said you were going to go back to
All
back.
All right, I got to do it. I got to do it. I called them my Dolphins earlier, and I'm never going to adopt them and become a Dolphins fan, but I am rolling with the Dolphins. His eyes are lit up, so he's probably on the Bills. I'm on the Dolphins +3 at the Bills. When Washington beat the New York Giants in 1966 and scored 72 points, you think they were dogs next week? with your local bookie after putting up 72. Miami Dolphins put up a 70 burger, still underdogs. I understand what Buffalo has done in back-to-back weeks, but I'm going to take those 3 points. I'm going to add them to whatever total the Dolphins want to put up. I think they're averaging 43 points a game. To me, another scheduling advantage for Miami, getting a cold weather team, not in the heart of the winter. I understand what the Bills have done, and your Buffalo Bills, I bet you wish you had a Super Bowl ticket, but the last 3 matchups with these two teams, the Bills won the last 2 by 3 points. Prior to that, the Dolphins won by 2. I think the Dolphins win this game. I think the Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs are going to be looking up at this juggernaut from South Beach all season. Give me the Dolphins +3. Pick 2. Week 4.
So I just realized I prepped 6 games today. So hopefully there's some agreement and I can pivot off of one of these. I worked really hard prepping the show today. We'll see if it shows up at the window. Next selection for me is going to be the Indianapolis Colts -1 home to the Los Angeles Rams. I have been monitoring this Rams team closely. Episode 1, I told you I was looking to back this team. I've been on them the last 2 weeks. They did not look good at Cincinnati, though. And it's hard not to react to what you see on film, even though this league seems to flip on a dime every week. Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams in my notes, they just can't get on the same page. 7 targets, 2 receptions for 27 yards. Not a good combination there. It's a short week for the Rams as well. On the Colts side for you, we were on them week 3 last week at Baltimore. Big road win at the Ravens. Not much production through the air. And while I don't expect Zach Moss to have 30 carries for north of 120 yards here against the LA Rams front, I do think LA can be run upon. Anthony Richardson potentially will be back. Colts 2-0 on the road, 0-1 at home. I say Indianapolis gets its first home win. Colts -1 makes my card for week 4.
That's an interesting play. So if Minshew was going to be the starter, would that still be in your 5? Does that quarterback position matter?
That selection is not quarterback dependent, but we are proceeding with that selection with an expectancy bias that Anthony Richardson would play, and I would like the pick more if he does. So maybe since I have 6 games for you, that might be one that I would check off. But no, we like the Colts this weekend.
Yeah. My third selection is also not quarterback dependent. I will be betting on one of your coaches that you're fading. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers -5 versus the Raiders. I understand Jimmy Garoppolo was concussed last weekend. This concussion protocol, as a mixed martial arts fan, to me, the first protocol would be if you get a concussion Sunday, you don't play the next Sunday, right? But anyway, it seems like maybe he'll make it through the concussion protocol, whether he does or not. I think Austin Eckler has a better chance to play this week than he has in other weeks. For me, if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't play and you're getting Brian Hoyer on Sunday, 5 points. Hoyer, as a pro, completed 59% of his passes in his career. He's earned over $36 million playing professional football, Brian Hoyer. But even if Jimmy Garoppolo plays, I like the Chargers. I like a little momentum, a little juice getting that first win. Herbert hasn't turned the football over all year. I'm so disgusted that we played the Raiders last week that I can't wait to root against them. Give me the Chargers -5. If Hoyer plays, this could go to 8 or 9, in my opinion.
Brian Hoyer may be my least favorite New England Patriot of all time. Some of those pregame outfits, my goodness, those suits did not fit, my man. All right, next up, Eagles -8, home to the Washington Commanders. Divisional game here in the NFC East. I just think these teams are on different levels, unit by unit, right? If you just go unit by unit. Special teams, offense versus defense. Let's start Philadelphia defense against Sam Howell and the Washington offense. Now, Terry McLaurin scares the shit out of me. With respect to Terry Rozier of the Charlotte Hornets.
Oh, shout out.
This is scary, Terry McLaurin. Even in that abomination against the Bills, every time he was targeted 6 times, it was a reception. But I love the Philly defense to lead the dance here, stop the run. I would bet this up to 9.5. I would tease the ever-living daylights out of the Philadelphia Eagles down to -2. I'm hoping our producer, Cody Merrill, will clip that if the Commanders win this game or Philly wins by 1. I would tease the ever-living daylights out of the Eagles down to -2. Philadelphia -8 in one of my few forecasted blowouts in week 4.
I like it. We might need to bring that forward to the contest. So I like that we're both on the Thursday night game in Anik Squared. That'll give us a little juice tomorrow night. I'm also going to play the London game. I'm hoping to get 2-0 on the board before those Sunday 1 o'clock Eastern time even starts. I'm taking the Jaguars -3 in their home away from home in London. So Atlanta has won 4 straight in this series. I think all of those, though, with Boston College's Matty Ice at the helm. So for me, I think Desmond Ridder, I don't put him in the category as Zach Wilson like you do, but that offense is still limited. I expect a bounce back from the Jaguars. Last week was a weird game. They lost the turnover battle 2-0, but they couldn't get off the field on third down. But they outgained the Texans despite losing by 20. I expect them to get it right on offense, cover the small number with ease. I like the Falcons. It's a team that I root for. But for me, I see the Jaguars. They go at the Bills week 5. You can't fuck around here after losing. That one, I'm going to be trying to convince you to play in the contest. Jaguars -3.
And they're actually not at the Bills in week 5. They are at Tottenham Hotspur new stadium. They are staying in London. This is a first in the international series. Jacksonville has a lot of experience playing in London. They don't have a lot of recent success there. They've lost 2 or 3 in a row in Jacksonville. But as I mentioned earlier, some of Arthur Smith's decisions have been really confounding. I know they're limited by Desmond Ridder, but just the inability to open things up. Jacksonville has been stout against the run, so I'm not sure Bijan Robinson is necessarily going to blow up here. So I do like Jacksonville in that London game, albeit it did not end up in my final 5. All right, 4th selection for me. Are we already at number 4? Cowboys -6.5 against the New England Patriots. Somewhat surprisingly, only the 15th meeting all time between these two teams, the first since 2021 when Dallas won in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium on a CeeDee Lamb touchdown in overtime. The Patriots almost lost to the Zach Wilson-led New York Jets. 15-10 the final.
Shout out 1510 The Zone. Back in the day, I couldn't help but think about Anthony Pepe, Ryan Masillo, John Anik. Back in the day, John used to host a radio show in 1510 The Zone, and it's a struggling radio station, but I saw that 1510. I couldn't let it go.
All right, speaking of struggling, the New England offense, unimaginative, underperforming. They don't scare you with big plays whatsoever. All the while, the Cowboys are just pissed, right? After losing straight up as double-digit favorites at Arizona. They didn't even play that poorly if you sort of dissect the box score, some red zone issues. I think the Pats maybe will be able to run the ball against Dallas. Ramondre Stevenson has not looked like the team MVP of years past, but maybe some Dallas vulnerability there. I think the Cowboys, though, have way too many weapons offensively. I like the scheduling spot for them. Dallas 27, New England 17 at the very least. Cowboys -6.5. Strong play for me in week 4.
I like that. You bring up Ramondre Stevenson. I believe last year he was far better after contact than he has been thus far this year. And that was one of the things about him early on in his career, where even just, coming in as a rookie, he looked like a man right out of the gate. My 5th selection, and I'm glad I punched this early. It's the Monday night game. Seahawks +1 at the Giants. They are now -1. This line has moved 2 points since I punched it earlier today. I still think the Giants are going to be without Saquon Barkley. I think it would be a mistake to play him with that ankle. I don't know the status of it right now, but I'm done disrespecting Seattle. I liked Geno Smith a lot last year, and then it's just, what, am I going to fade him this year just for the hell of it? I like him under the lights, back in MetLife Stadium, back in New York. I understand it's not the Jets fans, but he wants to make a statement in front of these New Yorkers, you can be sure. There had to be a lot of people thinking like me where the line moved 2 points already. Seattle's put up 37 points in back-to-back weeks after losing week 1 to the Rams, where that's a tough game in the division. And the Giants, other than that second half against Arizona, they've been outscored 90-12 in the other 5 halves of football.
Wow.
To me, this is kind of like the Lions. It's like a short price team on the road, starting to sort of get into that midseason form. I'll be rooting for Pete Carroll's boys, chewing gum on the sidelines. Monday night game, Seahawks +1. Final pick for me.
A lot of the challenges early on in NFL handicapping is trying to figure out what these teams are and what they are not. And I still feel like the ceiling on the Giants is higher than you're giving it credit for. So I actually am on the other side of that game, albeit not in my 5. My final selection is going to be your Carolina Panthers +3.5 home to the winless Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell's 38 years old, former draft pick of the New England Patriots, needs a little seasoning, in my opinion. Minnesota's butchering of that end of game situation against the Chargers was just so mind-numbing. I didn't even have any action. I think I was on the Chargers. But when you have rooted as New Englanders for a Bill Belichick-led team for 23 years, you really notice things like this, end-of-game situations. That never would happen in New England. It just wouldn't. They would have spiked the ball, and they would have gotten at least 2 more plays to try to get in the end zone. Instead, they throw a wayward interception. So I love Minnesota's weaponry. The Sons of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, they combined for 279 yards on 21 catches last week. But the Vikings' pass defense, they allowed completions on 40 of 47 attempts by Justin Herbert. Now, this week for Carolina, not sure if it's going to be Bryce Young or Andy Dalton. Dalton threw for 361 yards on 58 attempts at Seattle and 24 incompletions for the redhead, by the way. But the Panthers have a lot of offensive talent. They spread the ball around. They are at home. And the Vikings truly, folks, cannot get out of their own way. I expect a close game here. Panthers catching 3.5, my final pick.
Yeah, and, Kevin O'Connell talking about if guys aren't going to hang on to the football, they're going to lose, their job security will be in jeopardy. We'll see what happens. A lot of, 0-3 teams, man. It is a little different in a 17-game season, but back certainly against the wall, especially for a Vikings team that, has a lot of talent. But I thought Alexander Mattison, I thought they wouldn't take a step back there without Dalvin Cook. Clearly, I was wrong there. Just quickly, I have to ask you about one game that was an alternate selection for me that I was surprised you didn't play. So the Browns hosting the Ravens, right? Browns are -2.5. I find myself loving the Browns. Myles Garrett has just been an absolute animal. They've only given up 491 yards, this defense, in 3 games. Ravens, all sorts of banged up. Do you lean anywhere in that spot?
Last game's out. Browns -2.5 home to the Ravens. I like the Bengals -2.5 at Tennessee. I think Mike Vrabel is the only guy giving me pause because I think it's like total desperation time. I'm not exactly sure what their vision is for that QB room in Tennessee. But if your thought process is that Joe Burrow's calf is going to get better every week, his weaponry and that offense is just hard to deny against a Tennessee offense that can't get out of its own way. So Bengals -2.5, some strong opinion there. 49ers -14 against the Cardinals, as I mentioned, closer to the top of the show. I still will be looking to fade Arizona. Chiefs -9.5 at the Jets is gone. Maybe you like that up to 10. And then I do like the New York Giants +1 at Seattle.
So before we get out of here, I got to shout out Scott Van Pelt because he has a much better term for the emotional hedge, right? Where we bet against the Patriots, or he calls it the happiness hedge. How great is that?
Well, I've never called it an emotional hedge.
I know you haven't.
I'm trying to purchase wins.
Right.
I call it a purchase price.
He's playing against Maryland, and it's a happiness hedge. I like the alliteration. Well played.
Happiness hedge is pretty good.
Yeah, much better than emotional hedge. Anyway, we appreciate you guys being with us for week 4 of Anik Squared. If you want to submit your 5, if you want to submit your 5, throw it in the comments. We'll see how you do. Our boy Niner went 4-1 last week. Not bad. Shout out.
Greg Conley, Niner Sports and Entertainment, UFC stage manager. Thinks he's getting a guest spot on Anik Squared. Jury's still out. We'll see.
Anyway, next week we might want to get John a teleprompter, so he's not sitting here just, reading his script all day. See if we can get some prompter up. Good notes, good research, but like to see your eyes on camera. Anyway, for John Anik, my name is Jason Anik. We'll see you next week on Anik Squared. Maybe get DC back because the Saints-Patriots Thursday night. We appreciate you checking us out. Enjoy the games. For our great producer, Cody Merrow. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.